Ethan Marlowe exuded an aura of effortless control. As the CEO of Titan Enterprises, his every move dictated the rhythm of Manhattan's cutthroat corporate world. His sharp instincts and sterling reputation had carved out a legacy few could rival. He was the man everyone envied, a multi-million-dollar empire under his command, a sprawling penthouse that kissed the clouds, and a wife, Amelia, whose elegance turned heads wherever they went. Together, they were a picture of perfection, the type of couple gracing magazine covers and setting aspirational standards. Their 10th wedding anniversary loomed, a milestone worth celebrating. Amelia had spared no expense in planning the evening's gala at their private luxury estate. A carefully curated guest list of close friends, family, and Ethan's most trusted business partners would attend, the event destined to be as glittering as their shared life seemed. But lately, Ethan had felt the weight of something unseen, like a crack forming in flawless glass. The signs were subtle at first, mere whispers in the background of his otherwise precise world. Amelia's late-night meetings had grown frequent, her enthusiasm for weekend retreats inexplicably fervent. Conversations ended abruptly when Ethan entered a room, and her laughter on phone calls seemed forced. She had also taken a sudden interest in social causes, a shift from her usual glamorous pursuits. At Titan Enterprises, his lifelong friend and CFO, Victor, appeared increasingly preoccupied. Financial reports that had once been his gospel of transparency now came with excuses, missing files, delays, and vague reassurances. Ethan, a man conditioned to trust his instincts, found himself brushing off his unease as paranoia. That denial shattered when he found the divorce papers. Tucked away in Amelia's desk drawer, the unsigned papers bore his name and hers, a stark representation of a plan set in motion without his knowledge. The revelation sent a chill down his spine. Questions swirled in his mind. Were the late nights and secretive phone calls signs of a crumbling marriage? Or was it something deeper? What about Victor's evasive behavior? Could it all be connected? On the surface, Ethan Marlowe was a man with everything. But as he sat alone in his penthouse that evening, gazing out at the dazzling city skyline, he felt the creeping certainty that the life he had built was under siege. And for the first time, he doubted whether he'd see the betrayal coming. The anniversary dinner was an opulent display of wealth and sophistication, meticulously planned by Amelia herself. Crystal chandeliers bathed the grand hall in a soft, golden glow, reflecting off the polished marble floors and the glittering attire of the high-profile guests. String musicians played an elegant waltz in the corner, their melodies weaving seamlessly with the murmur of conversations and the occasional clink of champagne glasses. Amelia was the evening star, floating from guest to guest in a gown that shimmered like liquid silver. Her laughter rang like a bell, effortless and beguiling, as she charmed their family, friends, and business associates. She had always been a masterful hostess, knowing exactly how to make everyone feel important while keeping the spotlight firmly on herself. Watching her, Ethan felt a pang of something he couldn't quite name: admiration, jealousy, or perhaps suspicion. He moved through the crowd, exchanging pleasantries with colleagues and nodding politely to Amelia's circle of admirers. Yet, a weight pressed down on him, as though the room's warm glow only served to illuminate the shadows lurking at the edges of his perfect life. His sharp instincts, honed over decades in the business world, whispered that something was amiss. He observed Amelia more closely now, the slight tension in her jaw when she thought no one was looking, the way her eyes flicked toward Victor when she believed she was unobserved. It was on the veranda, as the cool evening breeze cut through the din of the party, that Ethan's doubts hardened into something more. Standing in the shadows, he sipped his drink, catching snippets of conversation from nearby. The familiar voice of Victor drifted through the air, low and conspiratorial. "Everything is set. He'll never see it coming." Ethan's heart stopped mid-beat. The words were innocuous on their own, but the context and the company made them ominous. From his vantage point, he saw Victor standing close to Amelia, their postures angled in a way that spoke of intimacy rather than mere business. Her laughter followed, light and deliberate, but to Ethan's ears, it was brittle, hollow. Victor handed her something small, a folded piece of paper, or perhaps an envelope. Amelia took it, her hand brushing his in a way that seemed calculated rather than accidental. Ethan couldn't make out her reply, but her smile spoke volumes. It was the kind of smile she used when she wanted something. Retreating into the house, Ethan's mind raced. Was this about the company? Was Titan Enterprises in jeopardy, or was the betrayal of a more personal nature? For years, he had trusted Victor implicitly, not just as a CFO, but as a friend who had been there from the beginning. The thought of both Amelia and Victor conspiring against him, whether in business, marriage, or both, was a blow he wasn't prepared to take. By the end of the night, the celebration felt like a cruel farce. Ethan knew one thing for certain. This wasn't paranoia anymore. It was war, and he would find the truth. The days that followed the anniversary dinner were a blur of calculated moves and quiet observation. Ethan knew better than to confront anyone outright. His success had always been built on strategy and patience. Instead, he began peeling back the layers of his life, digging into the things he had once taken for granted. He started with Titan Enterprises. Victor's sudden evasiveness had become too frequent to ignore. Ethan combed through financial reports late into the night, poring over every transaction, every account. What he found was a labyrinth of shell companies and offshore accounts, all linked to Amelia's name. Funds had been siphoned over the past 3 years, bleeding Titan's resources in a slow, deliberate manner. At first glance, the amounts seemed inconsequential, small enough not to raise suspicion, but as the transfers accumulated, the scale of the theft became undeniable. Victor had been the architect. Every transaction bore his fingerprints, hidden behind layers of plausible deniability. It was embezzlement on a scale Ethan had never thought possible under his own watch. A betrayal so profound it left him seething with rage. But what cut deeper was Amelia's complicity. Her name appeared on legal documents tied to the shell companies, and further investigation revealed she had been funneling the stolen money into luxury purchases and private accounts. Yet that wasn't the worst of it. Ethan's suspicions about Amelia and Victor's relationship took a darker turn when he stumbled upon incriminating emails. Passwords he had never thought to question unlocked a cache of intimate correspondence. They weren't just business partners in crime. They were lovers. The emails were explicit, laced with promises of a shared future and the cruel assumption that Ethan would be left powerless to stop them. In one message, Victor wrote about his plans to take over Titan once Ethan was out of the way. Another, from Amelia, spoke of her exhaustion in maintaining the facade of their marriage. "I'm tired of pretending," she wrote. "Soon we'll have everything." But it wasn't just the emails. Ethan hired a private investigator to confirm his suspicions. The photographs he received showed Amelia and Victor in compromising situations, meeting at luxury hotels, sharing secretive moments at high-end restaurants. Every image was another nail in the coffin of Ethan's trust. The betrayal wasn't impulsive, it was methodical, calculated. They had planned to gut his company and his marriage, leaving him with nothing while they built a new life on the ruins of his empire. Ethan's response was equally meticulous. He gathered every piece of evidence, building an airtight case that exposed their scheme. It wasn't enough to simply know the truth. He needed to weaponize it. He spent hours in his office compiling emails, financial records, and photographs, organizing them into a narrative that would not just prove his case, but devastate them completely. As the sun rose over Manhattan one morning, Ethan leaned back in his chair, staring at the evidence he had amassed. They thought they had beaten him, but they had underestimated the man who had built an empire from nothing. This wasn't just personal. It was war, and Ethan Marlowe never lost. Ethan Marlowe was a man known for his precision, and as the days turned into weeks, he prepared meticulously for what would be the most consequential night of his life. His evidence was ironclad, his strategy flawless. Yet, beneath the calm exterior, a storm brewed, a mix of betrayal, anger, and resolve that had become his constant companion. The family gathering was the perfect stage. It wasn't just another celebration. It was a symbol of everything he had built: his family, his legacy, his empire. As relatives and friends arrived at the estate, laughter and warmth filled the house, oblivious to the tension coiled just beneath the surface. Amelia, as usual, played her part flawlessly. She greeted guests with her radiant smile, the picture of grace and charm. She moved through the crowd effortlessly, her laughter ringing through the air, a stark contrast to the cold calculation Ethan now associated with her. Victor arrived late, his trademark smugness more apparent than ever. Dressed sharply and exuding confidence, he greeted Ethan with a firm handshake and a practiced smile, as though the sins of his betrayal were safely hidden behind his polished exterior. Ethan played along, his own smile a mask as he watched Victor's easy familiarity with Amelia. They moved through the room like predators circling their prey, unaware that the hunter was already among them. The house was alive with conversation and clinking glasses as the dinner bell chimed. The dining room, bathed in the soft glow of candlelight, was set for a feast. The long mahogany table was adorned with elegant centerpieces, and the guests settled into their seats, anticipation buzzing in the air. As the first course was served, Ethan raised his glass, signaling for silence. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice steady but carrying a weight that quieted the room. "This gathering is about trust, loyalty, and family, values that I hold dear." He let the words hang for a moment, his gaze sweeping over the guests, lingering on Amelia and Victor. He continued, "But sometimes those values are tested." Ethan pressed a button on a remote he had hidden in his pocket. The large screen at the head of the room flickered to life, and the guests turned their attention to it. What followed was a brutal unveiling of deceit. The room filled with Victor's voice from intercepted recordings, emails plotting to siphon money from Titan Enterprises, and photographs of Amelia and Victor together in ways that left no room for misinterpretation. The atmosphere turned electric, shock rippling through the room. Amelia's face drained of color, her poised demeanor shattering as whispers and gasps erupted. Victor stammered, his usual confidence crumbling under the weight of irrefutable evidence. Ethan stood tall, his voice like steel. "To those who thought they could destroy what I've built, you've underestimated me. This is my empire, and no one betrays me without consequences." As he sat down, the room was left in stunned silence. The storm had broken, and Ethan Marlowe was at its eye, unshaken. The fallout from Ethan Marlowe's revelation was swift and devastating. The family gathering had transformed from a celebration into a reckoning, and in the days that followed, the ripples of that night expanded to engulf Amelia and Victor in ways they could never have anticipated. Victor was the first to fall. Early the next morning, security guards escorted him out of Titan Enterprises, his badge and access revoked. The board of directors, armed with Ethan's evidence, wasted no time pressing charges. Victor was arrested within days, the embezzlement charges leading to a swift public scandal. As the media descended, his smug confidence dissolved into the panic of a man whose carefully crafted facade had crumbled. Every transaction he had tried to conceal, every lie he had spun, was now part of a public spectacle. His name, once synonymous with corporate success, became a cautionary tale of greed and betrayal. Amelia's downfall was no less catastrophic, though it unfolded on a more personal stage. The same friends and family who had once admired her grace now turned their backs on her. She had been exposed not only as unfaithful, but as an active conspirator in Victor's schemes. Whispers followed her everywhere, at the gym, in boutiques, even at her beloved charity events. Ethan had frozen their shared accounts, leaving her with only the money she had managed to stash in her private accounts, funds that quickly dwindled as she scrambled to rebuild her life. But Ethan's revenge went deeper than financial ruin. It wasn't enough to strip them of their resources. He wanted to ensure they understood the depth of their betrayal. Through his attorneys, he initiated proceedings to annul his marriage to Amelia on the grounds of fraud, invalidating her claims to alimony or any share of his assets. The same precision he used to build his empire was now applied to dismantling her world piece by piece. Yet Ethan's moves weren't born solely out of vindictiveness. They were about protecting his empire and sending a clear message to anyone who might think of crossing him in the future. As the legal battles unfolded, he quietly transferred Titan Enterprises' most valuable assets into protected accounts, restructuring the company to ensure it could weather any storm. He also used the opportunity to instill loyalty among his remaining executives, making it clear that integrity was non-negotiable in his empire. But revenge, Ethan realized, was a hollow victory. Standing in his penthouse one evening, gazing out over the city he had once ruled with unshakable confidence, he felt the weight of what he had lost. The betrayal of those closest to him had left scars that no amount of triumph could erase. The empire he had fought to protect felt lonelier now, its grandeur tarnished by the knowledge of what it had cost. As if on cue, his phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You think it's over? Watch your back." Ethan smirked at the screen, his resolve hardening. They had underestimated him once, and he had dismantled them. If they thought he was done, they were mistaken. The game wasn't over. It was evolving. Ethan Marlowe wasn't just ready for the next move, he was already ahead.